prove, all of you, that your grassroots effort to save your company and harness thousands and thousands of people was not about a family conflict or a Greek tragedy. But more about fairness, justice, and a solid moral compass that unites the human soul.
God, I hope the DeMula sisters know about the Streisand effect. CEOs aren't so popular right now. To prove this, I can give you statistics on how much the American public hates them, and they really, really do. Or I can just ask you to remember the moment when United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was killed. He was assassinated in cold blood on a public street in broad daylight, and the public did not mourn it, they celebrated it. Reactions to the news ranged from contemptuous indifference to sadistic glee. Many people view his alleged killer, Luigi Mangione, far more sympathetically than they did Thompson. The prosecutors in that case believe there's a serious risk that the jury may rule in Mangione's favor not because he didn't do it, but because they understand why he did it. Not that it's even possible that he did it. He was at my house, I swear. And it's not just healthcare CEOs. Wesley LePater was the CEO of Blackstone's Real Estate Investment Trust, which is a private equity giant headed by Lehman Brothers alumni specializing in buying up real estate in the midst of our ongoing housing crisis. When she was shot and killed in her Manhattan office, there was some excitement online that she may have been targeted for this reason. As it turns out, she appears to have been an unlucky casualty of a gunman who wanted to terrorize different executives. There is clearly an appetite for violence against people in business leadership. And that appetite is growing. People who scrape by on less than $50,000 a year hate CEOs about 3 times as much as middle-class folks. And since joblessness is rising and wages have stagnated, the number of low-income people is growing, and so too presumably is hatred of CEOs. Now, I don't blame people one bit for loathing CEOs. I think their rage is pretty logical. When my parents were born, a CEO earned about 20 times more than their average worker. Now, they're paid 630 times more. CEOs have been talking out of both sides of their mouths, bragging about record-breaking quarters while wringing their hands when employees beg for really basic shit like a full headcount. They are yanking back work-from-home opportunities, which they hypocritically still grant to themselves. They've gone all in on AI designed to make their own workforce obsolete. They have kissed the ring of fascists with tongue, and many work harder to cultivate a mythologized public image than to actually do good. And then they get all pissy when people notice they're full of shit. In a time when most people live one medical crisis away from bankruptcy, CEOs live rarefied lives that the rest of us can only dream about. Money is so cheap to them that they can afford to rent whole cities for their weddings, build mega mansions on private islands, work remotely from their private yachts, seek immortality with any ethically dubious medical treatment they like, and brush off the kinds of tax and legal troubles that would ruin anyone else. So, yeah, there's not a lot to love there. All of this stirs up a question in my mind. Does it have to be this way? Do all CEOs just have to be blood-sucking assholes? Are anger and hatred the inevitable trade-offs for acquiring wealth and power? Or is it possible for one enterprising person to start a great American business and get rich without exploiting their customers or their workers along the way? And if that is possible, where are they? What happened to the good CEOs? Did King Haggard bid the Red Bull to gather them up and drive them into the sea, because I cannot find them? I'm asking this question because it feels like America's bench of heroes is running really thin. And spoiler alert, I do think it's possible for good CEOs to exist. We need them now more than ever, but I think they are being driven to the brink of extinction by a dangerous group of people that you need to know more about. Luckily for me, there is a crystal clear example happening right now in my local news. It's going to give me a great opportunity to illustrate the systemic pressures driving good people out of leadership roles in business. And luckily for you, It's also juicy and fascinating family drama. That's right. We're going back to Market Basket. If you read To Hell and Back for Cheap Groceries, you already know Market Basket well, as my epic 17-store test revealed them to be the cheapest place to buy food in the region, beating rivals like Walmart, Aldi, and dollar stores. If you missed that, pull it up in another tab because it's one of the best things I've ever written and it goes into way more detail, but I will give you a quick summary that will get you up to speed for today's discussion. Market Basket is a family-owned grocery chain with 90 stores across New England. They have clean, efficient locations with good selections staffed by phenomenal employees whose diligence is explained by the fact that they get far better pay and benefits than most retail workers. Despite all of these extras, no rival can touch their prices. They are so popular that the only New Englanders who don't shop at Market Basket are anoclophobics, and that is not me making a joke. Grocery stores have notoriously thin margins, so how is one company able to keep prices so low while treating their staff way better than anyone else? My theory is that their success can mostly be attributed to their leadership. Its longest-serving CEOs have been a chain of fathers and sons who have intentionally prioritized fairness and compassion over making a quick and easy buck. Athanasios Demoulas, the company founder, was a fair and compassionate man, as evidenced by his willingness to go into debt to keep his customers fed throughout the Great Depression. Having a leader like that is like hitting a hole in one. Telemachus Mike Demoulas, his son, was a fair and compassionate man too. One employee described meeting him this way: I met Mike in 1977 when he purchased our facility. He didn't just walk in with ownership, he walked in with humility. He introduced himself to the staff and asked, "Do you like working here? Are you treated well? Do you make enough money to feed your families?" Having a leader like that is like hitting a second hole-in-one in a row. Arthur T. Demoulas, his son, is a fair and compassionate man too. There are so many stories about his decency that I'm kind of at a loss to choose examples. We'll get more into his leadership style in a moment anyway, so for now it's enough to say he is the company's third hole-in-one in a row. These men feel like relics, like heroes from a bygone mythic age of American capitalism. They're humble and hardworking and fair-minded and community-oriented patriarchs. I think that Americans hate modern CEOs because they have come to embody the opposite of those values. The public now expects CEOs to be self-aggrandizing sharks, bully their competitors, and grind down their employees, and shortchange their customers, and break the law, and shirk their responsibility to reinvest in the communities that created them. I don't have to tell you that hitting 3 holes in one in a row is improbably rare. I checked, it is actually the current world record, so it stands to reason we would run into some trouble trying to get a 4th. Foreshadowing. What makes a good leader? Arthur T. Demoulas is a well-known and respected figure in New England, and it's not because he goes on talk shows or writes books about his management philosophy. Most of what we know about him comes from people organically volunteering stories about him. I'm going to summarize a few examples which I think illustrate his character. To protect current employees from potential retaliation, I have chosen not to attribute names to these stories. I've collected them from comments in public and private social media groups, as well as my own personal contacts. I cannot vouch for the accuracy of individual anecdotes, but the sheer number of similar stories satisfies my need for verification. Arthur T. Demoulas has established or continued the chain's most generous benefits. Under his leadership, the company offers healthcare, paid vacations, parental leave, 401k matching, tuition assistance, and profit sharing even for part-time employees. He's famous for honoring employee milestones, going to as many weddings, funerals, and retirement parties as he can. One employee mentioned seeing him at 2 different funerals on the same day. Keep in mind, these are his personal nights and weekends. I cannot imagine the stamina required to be so available to such a large community. As a leader, he seems to have real compassion for his employees, not in a thoughts and prayers way, but with meaningful action. One brutally sad example that I found was when an employee's child died. Arthur T. Demoulas granted that employee 6 months of paid time off with the pledge to give more if it was needed. Contrast this with multi-billion-dollar global companies that have the nerve to pass the hat amongst employees when someone with years of loyal service gets sick or suffers a loss. Perhaps most tellingly, Arthur T. DeMoulis would disagree with my thesis that MarketBasket is primarily great because of leaders like him. He consistently attributes success not to himself, but to his employees. In his own words, "Here at MarketBasket, everyone is special. No one person is better or more important than another. Whether it's a full-timer or a part-timer, whether it's a sacker or a cashier or a grocery clerk or a truck driver or a warehouse selector, a store manager, a supervisor, a customer, a vendor, or a CEO, we are all equal. We are all equal, and by working together and only together do we succeed." DeMoulis is a textbook example of what the corporate world calls a servant leader. He thinks that his company's success or failure rides not on his own personal genius, but on the collective potential of all of his employees. So he chooses to spend most of his energy unlocking that potential by supporting them in any way he can. Now, this is not the only way to lead a group of people. Other missions and cultures may call for different approaches. If you look, you can find examples of effective leaders who are autocratic and democratic, visionary and traditional, hands-off and hands-on. But I think all great CEOs have one very important commonality, which is that they have found a way to succeed without exploiting either customers or employees. Oh, but Kitty, there's no such thing as an ethical capitalist, because according to the labor theory of value, the system is always exploitative so long as workers are forced to sell their excess labor in exchange for... Comrade, I feel you. As the vanguard prepares for revolution, we, the rear guard, are focused on harm reduction. I think it's important to remind our readers that exploitation exists on a spectrum that runs from deeply harmful to mutually beneficial. In the system we live within today, one man's choices can make the difference between poverty and stability for millions of people. It should not be that way, but it is. If we write off all business leaders as inherently evil, we give them an easy out from making morally courageous decisions as powerful individuals, which, as Arthur T. DeMoulis demonstrates, they are certainly capable of doing. Rest assured, I was not put on this planet to haul water for billionaires. It's not what I'm doing today. Quite the opposite. Trust the process. What makes a good CEO? Man, in this lighting, you can really see the gray streak in my hair. This is sick. Look at this rogue situation I've got going. Being a good leader is not a business role, but a social one. As you have surely witnessed in your own life, good leaders don't just live at the top of every level of society and industry. There are entry-level workers, volunteers, even children who are good leaders. We expect good leaders to also be good people, or at least make the effort, because you can't be a good leader to your family or your coworkers or your D&D group if you treat people like shit. In contrast, Chief Executive Officer is not a social role, it's a job, and you can be very good at that job while treating people like shit. That's why I think it's important to tease these often conflated roles apart. In my experience, CEOs mostly want to do 4 things: make the customers happy, make the employees happy, grow the market share, and turn a profit. The order and degree to which they care about each one of those things varies considerably. Take my tiny 2-person business, where my number one priority is employee happiness. BGR would be bigger and more profitable if we did things that we hate. Using AI to optimize the SEO on our short form SpawnCon, which we deliver while dancing like monkeys. That's simply not our top priority. If our follower count never matches the level of effort we put into everything we produce, so be it. At least we're having fun.
A bird may love a fish, signore, but where will they live?
Go catch a chicken. Nicole de Lancre was my mother. I am what she says. Do not address me so informal, madam. Where are the tapestries and the candlesticks and the silver pads that dresses them? Are you ill? And the chicken, sire.
There was a bee.
Conversely, there are many CEOs who only invest in employee happiness if it sinks so low that poor retention threatens those other 3 goals. Take, for example, Dollar General, which abused its employees to the point that whole teams walked off the job, hundreds of locations closed, and OSHA fined them millions of dollars. It's such an extreme crisis that they fired CEO Jeff Owen and got back together with their ex Todd Vasos. Yeah, I'm sure the guy who oversaw the company during all those OSHA violations will know just what to do. Lamau. You might think that making money is most CEOs' top priority, but even that is not always the case. Remember that for years, Amazon technically lost money. That is because their CEO, Jeff Bezos, was laser focused on growing market share. He wanted to build a website that made shopping so easy that people forgot how to shop anywhere else. And boy, did that strategy pay off for him. Many CEOs become newsworthy when they come up with weird min-maxing strategies that succeed or fail spectacularly. But there are some who seem to have it all, which brings us to our breaking news segment. By any metric, Arthur T. DeMoulis is both a great leader and a great CEO. Under his leadership, MarketBasket is clearly winning as a chain. Their customers are happy, their employees are happy, they have grown at a strategically steady pace, and their revenue last year was $7.7 billion. But in May of this year, Arthur T. DeMoulis was ousted from his position as CEO. Let that sink in. This guy did everything right, and now he is gone. Doesn't that pique your interest? Why? The number one reason that people quit their jobs is to escape a bad boss, yet this guy's employees keep photos of him on their desks. Grocery stores' prices are up 25% over the last 2 years, but the stores that he leads are beacons of affordability with deep wells of customer goodwill. So why is he gone? Why can't we have nice things? Understanding this one example will reveal an important rising force for corruption, which we have never talked about before. So, come on, let's dirty our fingernails together. Who can fire a CEO? Arthur T. DeMoulis was the CEO and is the largest shareholder of MarketBasket, but he is not its sole owner. He controls 28% of the company. His three sisters each own another 20%, and the remainder is in a trust for the next generation. Fractured ownership is a known liability for these multi-generational family-owned businesses. Think of your own extended family, the grandparents, the parents, siblings, cousins, the ex-brother-in-law who drinks way too much, the aunt who believes that 5-minute crafts videos are real. Imagine locking all of them together in one room with the goal of picking a single movie to watch together, and you will have the faintest glimpse of how contentious this shit might get. It's my observation that in family-run businesses, the chain of good leadership is usually disrupted by the family's changing circumstances. The poor immigrant who fixes cars to feed his family has a totally different life experience than his grandson who grows up partying in the Hamptons, wanting for nothing, secure in the knowledge he will inherit an auto parts distribution empire without any special effort on his part. No shit, those people are going to be very different leaders. But that doesn't seem to be the case with MarketBasket. Arthur T. DeMoulis has put forth 2 of his own children, Madeline and T.A., as successors. As usual, I'm shook to find myself defending nepotism, but that is very much how a family business is entitled to run itself. His kids have worked for the company from a young age, and I like their odds more than some private equity rando. Alas, at least right now, that's not going to happen. Arthur T. is out on his ass because his sisters teamed up against him. His 2 children are also gone, fired at the direction of their own aunts. MarketBasket, like most companies, is structured to make this entirely possible via its board of directors. What is a board? If a company is owned by just one person, they are called the owner. But if the company is owned by many people, those people are called shareholders. Their piece of the company is their share. If you own shares in any publicly traded company via stocks, you are a shareholder. The pie slice you own is probably so pathetically small that nobody really cares much about what you think. But in a company like MarketBasket, where the total number of individual shareholders can be counted on one hand, a shareholder is a very important person. They may not work at the company, but they expect to have a say in how it's run. A board of directors is a group of people chosen by the shareholders to act in the best interests of the company. If you're picturing a dozen indistinguishable old dudes in navy suits sitting around a gigantic funereal slab of an office table, yes, that's them. It helps to think of them as a miniature democracy within a company. The CEO acts like the president, wielding broad executive power. The board is like a legislature that gives him advice and holds him accountable and could potentially override him if they think he's putting the company in danger by making truly grievous mistakes. And yes, I'm using male pronouns to refer to hypothetical CEOs throughout this article. It just makes my sentences a lot clearer. I am not the one who decided to make 90% of all Fortune 500 CEOs male, and I certainly didn't invent English with its stupid conflation of plurals and genderless singulars. So it's illegal for you to be mad at me about it. Why do companies even have boards? At the risk of generalizing, company founders and CEOs tend to have bold personalities. It is easier to succeed in business if you're a visionary with drive and not a little bit of stubbornness. Those traits help get a company off the ground. In the beginning, many small companies are owned by only one or two people. Jess and I, for example, have an LLC with a 50-50 partnership. Decisions have to be unanimous between the two of us, which isn't that hard because we're both always right. If we make poor decisions, we're really only hurting ourselves. Maybe our producer, our spouses, and our dogs. Sorry, losers. Acorns ended its affiliate program. That means starting this quarter, the 3-Dog Bakery gravy train is over. It's going to be milk bones for the rest of the fiscal year. And yes, I will be snapping them in half. If we had 500 employees whose ability to feed their families and retire and have healthcare rode on our choices alone, then I understand the appeal of inviting more smart, experienced people in to provide outside perspective and to mediate disagreements. For this reason, almost all medium and large-sized companies and nonprofit organizations have boards of directors. What makes a board turn on their CEO? Boards and CEOs are supposed to work together. They're like mommy and daddy. They may sometimes disagree, but the one thing they always agree on is that they love you very much. But sometimes relationships break down, and daddies have to go live somewhere else. The most dysfunctional possible outcome is a board voting together to oust its CEO. Keep in mind that this power only flows in one direction. Like in a democracy, the president cannot fire senators, but the Senate can come together to remove a president from office. BRB fantasizing. Okay, I'm back. When I researched this topic, I read many case studies, and most fit into one of 3 categories. And by the way, some of these are technically resignations, not firings, but I'm counting them anyway because they only happened because the writing was on the wall that the board had the votes and the intent to throw them out if they refused to leave of their own accord. Number 1, boards fire CEOs when the CEO engages in serious misconduct. Sometimes a CEO does something so egregiously foolish that the board has to fire them to salvage the company. Think of the Weinstein Company, which fired their CEO and founder and namesake Harvey Weinstein after he, Harvey Weinsteined all over the place. A recent example would be Kohl's CEO Ashley Buchanan, who was dismissed by his board after only a few months on the job for siphoning unusually favorable business contracts to a company owned by, you guessed it, his extramarital affair partner. Sex pests and corporate leadership, name a more iconic duo. Serious breaches of trust, like fraud and abuse, are excellent justifications for a board to exist and to have the power to fire its own CEO. I'll note, however, that I think misconduct is sometimes used as a pretext. For example, Nestlé CEO Laurent Frixet was recently fired without getting his golden parachute, supposedly for having an affair with an employee, which violated the company's code of conduct. But I want to note that under his year of leadership, Nestle's share price dropped by almost 20%. Call me a cynic, but I think if he had increased share prices by 20%. I imagine the board might have discreetly turned a blind eye to the situation. I can't believe I wrote a French name for me to have to pronounce on camera. Zut alors, I have missed one. 2. Boards fire CEOs when the company eats shit. 2010's darling Groupon's stock debuted at $20 a share, but within a few years it had dropped to less than $3. The board fired its founder and CEO, Andrew Mason, basically because he failed to find ways to make their weird business model profitable. More recently, Dave Calhoun was ousted as the CEO of Boeing after a truly disastrous string of fatal crashes and highly publicized safety failures. Those failures triggered expensive legal fees, production delays, threats of investigation, stock devaluation, and just general reputational damage. Investors stopped believing that a man lacking engineering experience could lead an engineering company to make good engineering decisions. He was replaced by a man with an engineering background. Needing to distance yourself from past mistakes and gain fresh direction after a crisis seems like another excellent reason for a company to have a board with the ability to fire its CEO. 3. Boards fire CEOs when there's an internal power struggle over the company's ultimate goals. Put a frozen banana and a scoop of yogurt in your blender because here comes the juice. This is the irreconcilable differences category. One faction wants to sell the company and the other wants to keep it. One wants to take it public and the other wants it to stay private. Some people want to partner exclusively with luxury retailers, while others want their products on a shelf at every Walmart. If two groups emerge with fundamentally opposing ideas about how to make a business succeed, the CEO will lose if the board coalesces into a majority that wants something that he doesn't. And this is where the process, in my opinion, is being perverted and damaging our society in the process. Historically, the nature of a board of directors is to moderate the CEO. CEOs are the heroes of the hero's journey, the brash young Luke Skywalkers. The board is supposed to be their Obi-Wan Kenobi, slowing them down and making them think things through. If the words historically and supposed to be are making your spidey senses tingle, your close reading does you credit. Much like the Galactic Senate in the Star Wars prequels, this once moderating force has been corrupted in recent times to instead do the exact opposite. There is ample evidence to suggest that boards are increasingly stacked with radicals, and they are teaming up with each other to drive those rare great CEOs out of their seats of power. Rise of the disruptive shareholder. History is full of legislators protecting key constituents and private benefactors. Sometimes it's a flat-out crime, like in the Jack Abramoff scandal, but favorable treatment is often too subtle or indirect to rise to the level of criminality. When a representative from Iowa votes to extend corn subsidies, is that corrupt? Not necessarily, but if their biggest campaign donor is a major corn producer, and they retire to a well-paid consulting role with them, well, that just doesn't smell right. I told you that shareholders elect board members to act in a company's best interest. Given how much a board resembles a legislative body, you will not be shocked to hear that similar ethical concerns tend to come up. Is this board member loyal to the company or to the shareholder who put them into that lucrative position? People can honestly disagree about the best direction for a large business, so it is often a matter of trust. And business executives join politicians as the least trusted American professions. So, yeah. Through complicit board members, minority shareholders can try to gain control of companies and force unpopular changes on them. I call these people disruptive shareholders. The media uses the phrase activist shareholders, and I just hate that choice because it conflates two very different things. Someone who pressures companies to do socially responsible things like divest from dangerous industries or genocidal countries should be called an activist shareholder. They are shareholders who are using that position to do activism. A singular, wealthy, and well-connected person acting purely out of self-interest, forcing their ideas on a mostly unwilling company, yeah, that's not activism. It should not be called activism. So we're going with disruption. A disruptive shareholder's goal is often a hostile takeover, assuming control of a company against its leader's wishes. If they don't have the support to achieve that, they may settle for acquiring more board seats or shifting policy or manipulating share prices. Disruptive shareholders are growing in number, boldness, and power. Just in the past few years, major companies like HSBC and Disney and Unilever have staved off serious attacks. As wealth concentrates down into fewer and fewer hands, disruptive shareholders become more and more influential. Okay, now look, I know that this segment has felt as dry as the heels of my feet after a hot shower in January, and as irrelevant as that time those celebrities sang Imagine. I'm sorry I had to do it. This is the power shift that you have to understand if you want to know why your odds of having a non-shitty boss are shrinking every year. And I may now consider us formally prepared for the tea. Who are the Demoulas sisters? Let's turn the conversation back to our case study. I've told you a lot about Arthur T. Demoulas, and through him, what makes a good CEO. Now, let me tell you what I've been able to learn about his three sisters, as well as the board members they have chosen to represent themselves. Through each of them, I think I can explain what makes a bad board member. These ladies are public figures. They've been in and out of the news for decades, and they're suing to gain control of a business that employs thousands and feeds millions. However, like their brother, they are fairly private. So I've researched them exhaustively from every angle available to me. I have to be careful about what I say, because these ladies are wealthy, well-connected, and litigious. I will present you with some of the facts I've uncovered about them, which are true to the best of my knowledge. I will also give you my personal interpretations of their actions, motivations, and characters, which are only my opinion. They have a right to a different interpretation, and if they respond in any way to this article, I'll post it here to give you the opportunity to see all sides. They've got PR people, they can handle this. They want to sit on the Iron Throne of groceries, and I'm just a widow court jester. Surely they can handle a few barbs. To quote Strange Aeons, the greatest research skill you can have is being a nosy bitch who wants to find out. Who is Frances Demoulas Kettenbach? This is the Boston Public Library. It's the first municipal library in our nation, and the fact that it is so gloriously, palatially beautiful is a testament to the hopeful, enlightened spirit of its age. It was conceived as a palace for the people. Its entrance is flanked by two statues representing science and art. Its edifice proclaims, funded through the munificence and public spirit of citizens, the Commonwealth requires education of the people as the safeguard of order and liberty. When Jess and I first met, we lived within walking distance to this place. We visited it all the time. We would go wearing practically pajamas, looking grubby as hell, working on silly projects, and it was so special to pick any chair and sit down and know this place exists for me, for my enablement and my self-betterment and joy. Boston has many beautiful parks and public spaces. This is my second favorite in all of them. When my grandparents visited Boston for a single afternoon, this was the place I brought them. I love the Boston Public Library. My shitty videos are not going to do it justice. It is simply one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever visited, and I have never stopped being stunned that this place is real. I'm showing you this only to contextualize the prestige and rarity that comes with owning 303 Commonwealth Avenue. Just a short walk away, 303 Commonwealth Avenue sits squarely in the heart of downtown Boston, right between Newbury Street and the Charles River. It was designed in 1895 by the architectural firm McKim, Mead & White, the same architects who designed the Boston Public Library. Although they may not be household names today, this group represents the most productive and influential architects in American history. They defined the American Renaissance architectural style, they pioneered the City Beautiful movement of urban planning, and created many of America's most stunning and admired buildings. Madison Square Garden, the Washington Square Arch, the original Penn Station. Many of our most beautiful state capitals and museums and libraries and public spaces came from this firm's imagination. My liberal arts education is showing. They built some private homes too, such as Newport's Rosecliff. Very few private individuals could brag that they owned a McKim, Mead, and White home. Among them are the most famous names of the Gilded Age, Morgans and Vanderbilts. Today, most of them have become museums and historic landmarks that are open to the public. But not this one. This one belongs to Frances de Moulis Kettenbach, the eldest de Moulis sister, and how she came to be its sole owner is a story worthy of becoming a New York Times bestseller. Parentheses, true crime list. This 5-story mansion with its pearly granite facade is described by architectural historian Bainbridge Bunting as the most striking instance in the Back Bay of the individual house attaining an impressive, self-sufficient, yet restrained monumentality. It was owned by a series of wealthy magnates and their heirs until the 1960s, when its floors were segregated and converted into 5 lovely condominiums. In 1977, Jerome and Bernadette Wodinski moved into the top floor. He was a Brandeis professor researching octopus behavior, and she worked at Neiman Marcus. They loved their home and lived at 303 Commonwealth for over 3 decades. In 1996, Frances de Moulis and her husband Michael Kettenbach moved in. They bought one condo, then another, then another. They offered to buy the top floor too, but the Wodinskis didn't want to sell. Jerome was elderly and suffered from heart disease and emphysema. The couple was comfortable and wanted to stay there indefinitely. And that didn't agree with Frances de Moulis and her husband Michael at all. She desired to acquire all 5 units in the building for the purpose of transforming it into a single-family residence for herself. Let me stop here and ask you to use your imagination. Pretend that this is you. You want this building to yourself. Everyone is willing to sell to you except for the old couple who lives on the top floor. What do you do? I polled some friends, and pretty much everyone agreed they would never find themselves in such a situation because they would never seek to live in a 15,000 square foot mansion, no matter how many lotteries they won. But when pressed, they offered 3 possibilities. Offer more money? Just wait because they're old? Try to make friends with them? Now, these are good ideas because they are pro-social strategies. See, humans are social animals. We are hardwired to live together in collectives. When an argument breaks out over resources, it is harmful to the group to fight like badgers over it. So we develop these great big brains primarily to comprehend language, read facial expressions and body positioning, and remember debts and alliances so that we could work together and avoid socially disruptive violence. When in conflict, most humans default to pro-social strategies. But Frances Kettenbach did not. She chose other tactics. She started by physically tormenting her elderly neighbors. The Kettenbachs arranged the inspection of their building's older yet operational elevator in the hopes that it would result in the Department of Public Safety condemning it. The inspector only issued a simple repair ticket, and in response, Frances de Moulis decommissioned the elevator entirely. In doing so, she forced the elderly Wodinskis to crawl on their hands and knees up 4 flights of stairs every single time they wanted to enter or leave their own home. I'm not sure what the hope was there, except to make them give up or die. When that wasn't enough, Frances Kettenbach tormented them financially. Since she controlled a supermajority of the condo association's votes, she had carte blanche authority to order any expensive cosmetic or structural upgrades she wanted. She ordered a new heating system, a new electrical system, and the Wodinskis had no choice but to foot 1/5 of every bill. If the couple asked for something reasonable from the condo association, Frances de Moulis turned the request against them. For example, when the 10-year-old roof developed a small leak, instead of having it patched, she had the whole roof replaced and new skylights installed. The cost was $150,000, which she again demanded the Wodinskis to foot 20% of. Both judges and juries agreed that she used her vast wealth and legal representation to coerce, intimidate, and threaten the Wodinskis in an effort to force them out of their home. She sent private investigators to scare them at their workplaces with threats of bankruptcy. Gary Kosin, the Kettenbach's personal lawyer, was later disbarred for his thuggish behavior as their personal fixer. Thankfully, the Wodzinskis did not back down. They brought the Kettenbach-Demoulises to court, where a jury dick-slapped them with a $1.85 million judgment in the Wodzinskis' favor. When Francis Demoulis appealed that decision, they said, "Sorry, maybe we weren't clear," and awarded appellate fees too, which ballooned the total judgment against them. But maybe they thought it was all worth it in the end, because they finally got to have 303 Commonwealth Avenue all to themselves, since it is once again a single-family home belonging solely to the Kettenbach-Demoulises. Frances doesn't live in it, of course. If my research is correct, she actually lives in a $100 million Palm Beach palace a stone's throw away from Mar-a-Lago. Basically, as soon as she had sole ownership of this place, she was off hunting for the next thing to make hers. And if that is how she acquired a house for herself, what will she do now that she wants a chain of grocery stores? Grocery stores employ a lot of skilled, able-bodied workers, and if those people are metaphorically made to crawl, they can leave or protest or organize. They have options. But some of the people who work at Market Basket are disabled. Some are older, or they don't speak English, or they can't drive to a further workplace. If those people have a boss who treats them with kindness and dignity, they can be excellent employees and treasured participants in the community. But if they have a boss devoid of empathy, who's willing to inflict harm on others for her own personal gain, I fear that they will suffer terribly. Bad board members are antisocial. Imagine a trolley dilemma where your options are live in a 4-story mansion or force sick old people to crawl on their hands and knees every day and live in a 5-story mansion. Imagine slamming that lever down so fast your hand was a blur. It is a rare kind of person who fails a simple binary moral choice so spectacularly. I cannot imagine clearer evidence that someone like this does not belong anywhere near leadership of a company of tens of thousands of employees.
Now what gives you the right to play God in these people's lives? What makes you so special then? You're sick! You're a sick fuck!
I don't know what's wrong with Frances Demoulis. I'm not asserting she has a mental illness or a personality disorder or an overabundance of lead being released back into her bloodstream from her osteoporostic old lady bones. I don't have the training to recognize any of that, and it would not be my place to guess even if I did. But it's hard to avoid pathologizing language when describing behavior like this. My earliest drafts use words like sociopath, psychopath, narcissist, because I just struggled to find strong enough words to paint the dangerous, vicious aberrance of her actions. But those are medicalized terms, and they should really not be something that I'm mucking around in. I'll say I don't think she's a sadist. I found no evidence that she inflicts pain for enjoyment. Rather, I suspect she just doesn't care about how her actions terrorize others. Their terror is their problem. If they want it to stop, they should give her what she wants. She doesn't pause to consider alternatives that preserve the social order, and we do have words for that. Frances Demoulis employed antisocial strategies when she came into conflict with her neighbors. Antisocial behaviors are behaviors taken without regard for the harm that they do to others or the disruptions that they cause to social harmony. They may be criminal, as a judge and jury deemed true in this case, but more often, they are merely inconsiderate, cruel, and rude. Frances Kettenbach is not a board member at Market Basket, but a significant shareholder, which means she has power over board composition. All 3 sisters are alleged to have chosen board members who are personally loyal to them, and I found a lot of evidence to corroborate that. More on that later. Whether it's direct or indirect, this is how people who are comfortable making antisocial choices end up on company boards where they can do unspeakable damage. Boards exist to act carefully, protect the company from ruinous litigation, and safeguard the livelihood of its employees. When given full control over just one condo association, Frances Demoulis acted recklessly, instigated lawsuits with multi-million-dollar judgments against her, and cruelly subjected the people that she was supposed to represent with callous, intentional physical and financial torment. I would rather not up the stakes to 30,000 people and cross my fingers for a big heel-face turn. Antisocial people are often ostracized because of their history of unpleasant behavior, and this tracks with my history into Frances Kettenbach. Most people who are as wealthy as she is have a strong social presence. They are active in charitable organizations or local politics. You can find them in photographs of store openings, galas, and weddings. But most mentions of her are in the court docket and unflattering press articles and nasty social media comments. She does not deserve my sympathy or my empathy. I save that for the poor people she has hurt, but I do pity her. Nobody brings a baby into the world hoping she'll grow up to be a miserable, lonely, aggrieved old bully. What a waste of life. That's sister number 1. We've got 2 more stops on this crazy train, so come on. Who is Glorianne Demoulas Farnham? Eldest sister Frances and youngest sister Karen have been accused of dishonest self-dealing business practices in Arthur T. Demoulas' countersuit and in many other cases going back years. And don't worry, Karen's getting her own segment. But Glorianne, the middle sister, she's an interesting one. Her name is on the docket, but otherwise the court records are silent about her individual role in this. The others are all allegedly using shady land deals and self-dealing contracts and board manipulation to siphon more of Market Basket's wealth into their own hands. But there are no such allegations against Glorianne specifically. If Frances is a cartoon bad guy, I think that Glorianne may be more benign. I know who I'd rather sit next to on a plane. Not that I ever would. I don't think the Demoulas sisters fly Spirit Airlines. As a semi-professional middle child myself, my instincts tell me that Glorianne was probably the holdout, the last one to agree to launch the family into an emotional nuclear winter. I found some evidence for this in the filings for their parents' charitable foundation. Now, this foundation gives money to hospitals, schools, and youth programs in their community. Tax records capture the number of hours that each administrator works toward that foundation. The person doing the most work is its sole paid administrator, Sue Dufresne, estimating 6 hours of work per week. Sue, by the way, is among the many allies of Arthur T. Demoulas the sisters have fired this year. Thanks for vouchsafing our parents' legacy for many years. Now get the fuck out. Following her is Arthur T. himself, working an estimated 2 hours per week. Glorianne is the only sister who claims to do anything for the foundation at an estimated 1 hour per week. To me, that suggests that Glorianne was probably the peacekeeper between these family factions. Looking at public records and past news coverage of Glorianne Demoulas, I am left with the impression that she leads the most charmed life that anyone could realistically expect. She was born into a wealthy family. As far as an outsider like me can tell, she did not grow up wanting for anything material. According to the countersuit, she has never worked at a Market Basket. I can find no record of her having worked anywhere. It may be that she did, and I simply failed to find any documentation of it, but I think it's pretty likely she's always had the option not to work, which is an amazing luxury. She married a star football player. The two have stayed married for something like 40 years. Mazel tov. Together, they have a handsome son and a beautiful daughter who seem to be healthy, educated, athletic, and successful adults out pursuing their own dreams. She owns a modest little family home. I wouldn't call it that, but I'm sure that they do. When she wants to get away for the weekend, she can go to her other modest little family home, which has twice the square footage, on a pristine, beautiful lakefront, in one of the most expensive and prestigious neighborhoods, in the most expensive and prestigious areas of the highest functioning and most expensive states in America. Her name's on the paperwork for multiple other properties, but I'm not going to show them because I'm pretty sure they are occupied by her kids, which is great. It is a blessing to be able to extend stability to your loved ones. And of course, Market Basket pays her $40 million every year. Oh yeah. Have I mentioned that part yet? In a lead buried so deeply, James Cameron couldn't build a submersible to find it. Each of the sisters takes home more than $40 million in dividends every year. And that's after tax. This is not money earned in exchange for labor. It is the product of their inheritance. This is their money's money. The labor generating this capital belonged to their grandfather and their father and their brother and the collective effort of tens of thousands of employees spread over many decades. And I guess that's not enough for them, as they are willing to knife their own brother in the back for a chance to have more. I really need you to understand how hard it is to spend $40 million in 1 year. In fact, I tasked our Patreon donors with helping me brainstorm. Let's be incredibly magnanimous and give $10 million a year to charity, and another $10 million can go to a combination of living expenses and directly supporting friends and family. With the money that is left over, with just half of that amount. Do you like food? If you wanted to dine out for every single breakfast, lunch, and dinner for an entire year, good luck figuring out how to order $18,000 worth of food at every meal. Want more time for yourself? You could hire a personal assistant, housekeeper, private chef, chauffeur, personal trainer, stylist, nanny, dog walker, bodyguard, and poison taste tester to tend to your needs constantly on a full-time basis. And you could hire all of these people and pay each of them a salary of $165,000 a month. Love to travel? If you went on a 3-week vacation 4 times a year, start researching places where the rooms cost $238,000 a night, because that's your budget. To contextualize that further, if you went to the ultra-luxury Hawaiian resort where they filmed season 1 of The White Lotus and you rented their most expensive private suite, you could fill it with 12 friends, each of you getting all-inclusive access to fine dining, spa treatments, personal assistance, boat tours, scuba instruction, anything you wanted, on demand all the time, and it would only be $40,000 a night. So you're going to have to do a lot better than that. Let's buy some dream homes for our patrons. Megan wants an 8-bedroom house in the Pacific Northwest, which is $5 million, whether you prefer a modern farmhouse or a full-on Polly Pocket Starlight Castle. Catherine requests a mountain home in Gatlinburg. This one's giving luxury onsen realness for only $2 million. Jamie says she wants a Boston condo across the street from the Brookline Booksmith. But I know what she really wants is the $3 million one upstairs from it so that she gets a nice view of the SS Pierce building. I gotcha, Jamie. Let's throw on Jackie's vacation home in the Outer Banks. This one is only $1 million, but I just love it. It's got that friendly Gullah Gullah Island vibe. Oh, obviously, we can buy back Frogwarts and turn it into our own Xavier School for the Whatevers, aka the dream that we have been obsessing about for years. And, Jesus Christ, we have barely crawled over the halfway point. I'm done. I'm intellectually exhausted thinking of ways to spend in one lifetime what these women bring home in 1 year for no labor. And evidently, they need more? Bad board members are rapacious. There's a question that lives at the heart of personal finance, and it's a question I have no idea how to answer. Why do some people want money? Obviously, I know why people need money. We are animals, inefficient beings of flesh and blood. If we don't consume anything, we die. As part of our never-ending quest for the calories that we need to sustain our mortal bodies, we require food and clothing and housing. Luckily, we have organized our society so that we can easily trade our labor for those things using the intermediary of money. I get that. I also know why people want more money than they need. An excess of resources brings physical and psychological safety. It insulates you against life's worst misfortunes, offers opportunities to extend stability to your family and friends, and tempts you with a dazzling array of pleasure-seeking opportunities. And since most of us live in a country colonized by Puritans, let me drop a gentle reminder that seeking pleasure is natural and morally neutral. But I would argue these are all still needs, just higher needs. We can survive without stability, community, legacy, fulfillment, a sense of purpose, but we are driven to seek them as part of our human condition. So I get why people need money, and I get why people want to have more than they need. But there are some people who have more money than any one person could ever realistically use in one lifetime. And yet what they want more than anything is more money. Their desire for money is so profound that they will seek it to the detriment of their own higher needs. They will isolate themselves from friends and damage their relationship with family and defer pleasure-seeking opportunities in order to get more money. And it is these people that make me confused math lady. The way I see it, there are two possibilities. One is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs is incomplete. Maybe there's some as yet unnamed higher level of personal satisfaction that only a handful of especially ambitious and enterprising people can see. And it happens to be something that requires oodles and oodles of money to attain. So the fact that they are righteously grasping at it with all of their souls justifies everything that they do. Elon Musk would be one such example. He has justified keeping every penny of his ludicrous wealth because he says he wants to carry the flame of human civilization into space. Personally, I'm rooting for Elon Musk to become mankind's second Prometheus. I can't wait for the part where the gods chain him to a rock and send a daily eagle to devour his lily liver straight out of his Donkey Kong barrel-shaped body as a punishment for being a hubristic little bitch. The other possibility is that the pyramid is right. Money lovers are stuck in the lower tiers like the cast of No Exit. They want safety and love and esteem just like everybody else, but they have deluded themselves into thinking that money is what's stopping them from getting it. Their quest for money is actually a quest for self-actualization, a thing that all people want and cannot ever stop wanting. This situation is dangerous because it creates a tremendous potential social evil. Because an ultra-wealthy person incapable of being satisfied has the power to craft policies that drain wealth away from others on a massive scale. The modest wealth and stability that a normal person could use to live a satisfying life is diverted instead toward an end that it cannot achieve, bringing satisfaction to a person who does not understand how to be satisfied. Which brings me back to Glorianne. Glorianne Farnham is 73 years old. Statistically, she's only got about 8 more trips around the sun. Someone with her resources can choose to go almost anywhere, do almost anything with that precious remaining time. And what she has chosen to do is to drag her immediate family members to court, initiating what will surely be a life-sucking, multi-year slugfest of suits and countersuits that will drain them all emotionally and financially. In doing so, she has made herself a target of hatred in the broader community. When she dies, I think this proxy fight will likely be the main bullet point in her obituary. Malcontent will be her legacy. All, presumably, just to have more money. Rapaciousness is an act of self-harm. It's sad to watch. Once again, I pity this woman and her sisters who have so much and are convinced they still need more. But rapacious people cannot be invited into boardrooms. If they are given power over others, their inability to be satisfied threatens the stability of companies and potentially society itself. In recent decades, rapacious board members have voted down profit sharing, pensions, paid vacations, parental leave, and pay raises because they would rather push customers and employees to the brink of starvation than sacrifice a single golden coin off of the embarrassing dragon's hoard of personal wealth they have promised to their insatiable shareholders. Boards are supposed to keep companies safe. They are supposed to bring stability and long-sightedness, but many have doomed themselves by capitulating to the avariciousness of a handful of
Psychopath.
No.
Psychopath.
No, a handful of greedy jerks When greedy jerks make all of the decisions, companies collapse suddenly under the weight of years of broken priorities and covert mismanagement. They create booms and busts that they are too fragile to endure, and they cheapen the experience of being alive in a modern human society by pushing our greatest innovations and pleasures into the hands of only a lucky few. I want to end this segment by pointing out the harm this perpetuates across generations. For this piece, I investigated every member of the Demoulas family, including their adult children. I have chosen not to share almost anything that I learned about them because most of them are not public figures. It does not feel fair to drag them into this, but I will share a single quote from an interview with Glorianne's son, pro hockey player Bobby Farnham. When a journalist asked Glorianne's son about the Demoulas family business, he shut the journalist down hard. He said he didn't like to talk about it, like at all. It's entirely possible that the subject merely bores him or distracts from his personal achievements, and there's nothing else to it. But I wonder if it's because the inter-family conflict has been a source of lifelong pain for him, as I think it might be for all of the Demoulas children and grandchildren. It is terrible to imagine a child learning to fear and mistrust their own family members. I have a little niece and nephew who think I am the coolest person on the planet, and I cannot imagine what it would take to one day fire them without cause from their jobs and sue their parents. I wouldn't want to bring children into a family where those vital bonds could so easily be torn apart. I cannot imagine that there isn't quite a lot of trauma here. Bobby Farnham seems like a nice guy, by the way. He had a crazy long pro hockey career. That is a very intense sport, so I hope he's doing well. Wonder what he's up to today. Ring, 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 ring. What's that? You opened a what? A private equity firm? Huh. How long after that did his mother turn on his uncle to join forces with a bunch of aunts and cousins who are all alleged to have indulged in extensive self-dealing? A year? Really? Huh. Well, I'm sure there's nothing ethically dubious going on there. I mean, it's not like he's using his extensive relationships with high net worth individuals and family offices to build his own wealth. What's that? That's literally what it says on their company's About Us page? That can't be true. Who is Karen Demoulas Pascal?
Mada, inochi ga aru mono, sore wa motte kaeru ga ii!
Except you, Karen. Arthur T. Demoulas' counterclaim makes clear the ringleaders of this corporate coup. Middle sisters Glorianne and her family are only mentioned twice, but the eldest and youngest sister's families are mentioned 35 and 31 times, respectively. You already know about Francis Onee-sama, so let's meet youngest sister Karen. Karen Demoulas Pascal, like her sisters, has never worked at a market basket. I could not find records of her ever having worked anywhere except in her personal family enterprises. The Kettenbach Demoulases and Pascal Demoulases are both accused of enriching themselves with commercial real estate schemes and suspicious business contracts. There are pages and pages of legal documents about this going back years. We don't have time to go through all of them, so here is an immensely simplified explanation of the gist of the counterclaim. Allegedly, these families bought land that was perfect for Market Basket. They then offered to sell the land to Market Basket, but during the bidding, they got their personal friends to put in crazy high bids just to artificially bump up the land's price. Arthur T. Demoulas said, "Could you not?" But the sisters teamed up to outvote him. Karen Demoulas' participation in this scheme, if true, informs my opinion that she is as cold-heartedly antisocial and rapacious as her other sisters. Market Basket is a profit-sharing institution. Therefore, if shareholders force the company to buy land at inflated prices, they are stealing money out of the pockets of regular employees. It is bone-chilling to see these ghouls glad-handing with the very people most directly victimized by their insatiable, devious greed. Allegedly. The fact that they're able to shake hands and pose for photos with their victims tells me that the people whose labor builds their personal wealth are not even real to them. They are objects, abstractions, NPCs, anything but friends. Oh, but that's not to say they don't have friends elsewhere. Like, say, on the board. Bad board members are coordinated. The relationship between the Demoulas sisters and their board members is rife with obvious potential conflicts of interest. A conflict of interest is an external relationship that has the power to potentially improperly bias someone tasked with making impartial decisions on behalf of a company. It's one of the most intuitive business practices. Everybody gets why this is bad. Let's say you ran a beauty pageant for dogs, where first prize gets $10,000. I could be an impartial judge, but not if my own dog was in the contest, because I've already formed the correct opinion that my dear sweet mama, she's the most beautiful, the most talented, the specialist, the shiniest, the shimmeriest. You also could not trust my vote if my friends' dogs were entered, because although they are all the owners of extremely handsome boys, I obviously would jump at any pretext to put 10,000 smackaroos into my friends' pockets. Every company with a board expects the board to be free from conflicts of interest. It is de rigueur. But inappropriate closeness and personal loyalty are sometimes hard to prove. If someone's taken a secret pledge of loyalty, they're not going to own up to it. The shareholder's not dumb. They're not going to say, I'm nominating this person because he's my best friend's husband, and I know he'll always do whatever I say. And the board member-to-be won't say, yep, fuck the company. I'll only ever vote in the interest of this one shareholder because she's my best chance to ascend into the billionaire class. No, both parties will do everything that they can to obscure their conflicting relationship. You would never claim that your pick was impartial if it could be really easily disproven by anyone with access to basic public records and a little bit of free time. Right?
Right, Karen?
This is the home of Karen Demoulas Pascal. It is a 6,000 square foot, custom-built, multi-million-dollar mansion sitting on a few acres of land in the heart of the second wealthiest town in Massachusetts. It's surrounded by conservation land and feels very private, yet it's just steps to the rail trail and an easy walk to Weston's cute little downtown. It's got a long private driveway and a massive pool out back. Basically, it's a real shithole. I totally get why the Pascal Demoulases needed to also buy this little oceanfront getaway and then sell it for another more different oceanfront getaway. Market basket employees, when your feet hurt at the end of a long shift, just remember, it's for a good cause. Now, in the interest of thoroughness, I think I should also investigate the board members who they've chosen to act as impartial representatives of the business. This is the home of the newly elected board chair, Jay Hachigian. It's a 7,000 square foot custom-built multi-million-dollar mansion sitting on a few acres of land in the heart of downtown Weston. It also has a long private driveway and a massive pool out back. You know, if the two houses look similar, it's probably because they were built at the same time by the same builder. I'm really happy that the Demoulas sisters found the perfect guy to act as a diligent and fully impartial chairman of the board of their grandfather's company. The fact that he lives next door to one of them is a crazy coincidence. It's almost as crazy as the coincidence of Jay Hachigian being married to Jill Columbosian Hachigian, a woman who's been Karen Demoulas' personal friend for 50 fucking years. You know, when I asked our patrons what they would do if they earned $40 million a year, many of them mentioned wanting to buy houses directly next door to their closest friends and family. Nobody thought to follow up with also give their spouses cushy jobs as my professional thrall, but don't think less of them. Our Patreon is full of pores. They just don't have access to the next level genius of the ultra wealthy. And this is normal to them. Of the 50 largest American companies, 80% of them are connected by one or more shared board members. Fortune 500 companies have 5,400 board seats available, but the same 750 people warm their asses in 30% of them. It is a genteel, perfectly legal cartel of millionaires and billionaires. Hetchigian isn't the only new board member with obvious conflicts of interest. Counterclaim co-defendant Michael Keyes was given a board membership about a year after working for the company that put in the bid that drove up the price of the future Market Basket location that the sisters forced through. And Stephen Collins's former business partner, David Musafir, is another longtime friend of the Pescaldemulises. He lives about a mile down the road in the biggest and nicest Weston mansion of them all.
Go back to Party City where you belong.
I don't know Market Basket's bylaws regarding conflicts of interest. Maybe this intense, lifelong friendship was disclosed and deemed perfectly acceptable. I'm not alleging that anything illegal happened here. But I know for a fact that the world has many smart, honest, capable business people who don't live 500 feet away from major shareholders and haven't worked for companies alleged to have cheated the company in question. What I want you to understand from all of this is that bad board members are intensely coordinated. You might think that people who exhibit antisocial and rapacious behaviors are doomed to always work alone, but that is not the case. They are running devastatingly effective team strats. People with low empathy and large appetites behave in ways that shock normal, healthy people, but they are actually remarkably predictable to each other. They will always act in their own self-interest, so they gather around each other and work together to take down prey much larger than themselves. What makes great CEOs vulnerable? We've talked you to death about rising income inequality in America. You know that we blame the shift on the ultra-wealthy, their indefensible greed, and the political and social structures that enable them to take far more than their fair share. What we may have failed to drive home is that a new class of person is arising as a result. These people seek to create a new aristocracy, a new elite ruling class of permanent billionaires. They seek a wealth so vast that it can never be drawn down, even by the most profligate heirs. There are 3 ways to get into this class: a lucky circumstance of birth, inheriting vast generational wealth and power with no specialized effort on your part. They often have recognizable surnames, but you'd be hard-pressed to name any of their own personal accomplishments. Examples include Jim Walton, Carl Albrecht Jr., Baron Trump. Number 2, holding some kind of once-in-a-generation talent for something and having the ambition, business acumen, good timing, and luck to translate it into massive material wealth. Think of someone like Warren Buffett, George Lucas, or Taylor Swift. Number 3, find someone who's in the first 2 categories and hold on to their coattails for dear life. We may rarely know their names, but for every Oprah Winfrey, there is a handful of Gayle Kings and Stedman Grahams whose dead weight is lifted by the rocket ship trajectory of others. History is full of CEOs who fit into that second category. Steve Jobs, for example, was a domineering jerk and an arrogant fruitarian, but I would argue he is an example of someone who succeeded because he had several different kinds of genius that all synergized together. If he didn't have S-tier cleverness in technology and business and marketing, plus the benefits of good luck and timing, his company would have sunk into the dot-com tar pits like so many others. Boards are full of the third category of would-be elites. They were not born great, and they cannot achieve greatness, so they orient their whole lives around getting a chance to have greatness thrust upon them. These leeches are smart enough to recognize genius in others, but not smart enough to figure out how to replicate it within themselves. They could never start their own company and make it flourish without relying on connections. That's too hard. But they restlessly hunger for everything a good CEO has. The money, yes, the power, sure, but also the stability, The identity, the respect, the admiration, the credit, the inner peace that comes from being assured of your own excellence. It is emotional as well as material, which is why they're so insatiable. Great CEOs like Arthur T. DeMoulis build companies without exploiting others. And by doing so, they attract these bottom feeders in droves because they represent the easiest, clearest, short-term opportunity to turn millions into billions. Market Basket's prices are low and their employee costs are high. Exploiting this business model for massive personal gain requires no special brilliance or genius. You push your way in, raise prices, slash costs, boom, done. In fact, you can just copy the homework of your competitors. Lower the wages to whatever Albertsons pays. Slash benefits to match whatever Kroger offers. Install the same self-checkouts you see at Publix. Now instruct your store managers to keep creeping pricing up by 3% every quarter until the frog is thoroughly boiled and customers are paying way more than they once did. Think of it this way. If I waved a magic wand and put you in charge of Walmart for 1 year, do you think you could raise their profits way beyond current expectations? Probably not, right? Hundreds of very cunning leaders within that company have spent decades coming up with innovative ways to shave pennies and dimes off their store's processes. To succeed in that environment, you'd have to be more clever than everyone who came before you, as well as everyone who works at a competing big box store. It probably ain't gonna happen. But if I put you in charge of Market Basket, you could raise prices across the board by 15% overnight and still probably be the cheapest local chain. Morally bankrupt business idiots cannot resist a fruit hanging this low, looking this juicy, and the structure of boards makes it possible for them to harvest what they did not grow. Yes? Yes, Nikki. I will pet you, Nikki. I will brush you, Nikki. Please. You can have the whole house. The whole house. You can have any room in this house. All of the radiators are warm right now. You could go sit on any one of them. Every dog bed. Anywhere you want. God damn it, Nikki! You're in league with the DeMoulis sisters. How do you remove a bad board member? I told you that companies with boards function sort of like a democracy, with CEOs as the president and boards as the legislature. Just like in government, these forces need a third party to provide checks and balances: the courts. When CEO Arthur T. DeMoulis and board members loyal to the sisters irrevocably clashed, the issue was hauled to the Delaware Chancellery Court, where, at time of writing, the matter is still under consideration. I think Arthur T. DeMoulis has good odds of being reinstated by the courts. The sisters' original suit was thin and vague, but their brother's countersuit feels like 10 pounds of evidence stuffed into a 1-pound bag. Ugh, I would give my right nut to see those depositions. I don't have a right nut, but I would get one and then give it away. But that outcome is far from guaranteed. More evidence might come out. A judge might not agree with my interpretation of the facts. Specific language in Market Basket's bylaws or past minutes might work against him. We could end up with half measures that prolong or deepen the conflict. Who's to say what's going to happen? Regardless, this fight will take years, disrupt the course of business, and cost millions in legal fees. That is super inefficient, and I think we can do better. Looking at Market Basket as a cautionary tale, I also see a different, better option to curb the forces of both rule-breaking CEOs and disruptive shareholders and their proxy board members. Instead of making our legal system into this inefficient and slow-moving counterweight, Let it instead be a final referee, because there's another group that is far better positioned to act as a tiebreaker in these destructive CEO board civil wars. That's the employees. Why employees make the best mediators in board CEO disputes. Let's imagine an individual Market Basket employee. Let's say her name is Rosa. She's an older Brazilian-American woman who lives in East Boston. She works as a checkout clerk over at the Chelsea store, and after diligently saving, she has managed to buy a condo right nearby. She supports her elderly parents by sending money back home, and when her shift is over, she does her personal shopping at that Market Basket too. Now, I want you to imagine that Market Basket shits the bed, and all of its stores close overnight. Add Rosa to the list of people I profiled today. Arthur T. DeMoulis, his sisters Frances, Glorianne, and Karen, and the board members that they've chosen to represent themselves. And now tell me, of all of these people, who would suffer the most if Market Basket failed? I'd argue it's not the people who are major shareholders in the business, but rather someone like Rosa. The DeMoulis siblings might feel sad about it, but they're not going to lose their best job prospect, 100% of their income, and access to affordable food in their neighborhood, which has historically been a food desert. But Rosa would. Many modern business leaders seem to have forgotten the virtue of stability. Many are maniacally focused on growing shareholder value alone. But employees still want to find the perfect balance. They want good jobs, but they also want to keep goods and services affordable for themselves and their neighbors. On a daily basis, they are the ones who are the most inconvenienced by waste and mismanagement, and they are perfectly capable of evaluating the merits of competing leadership visions. In almost every situation that I could imagine, I would trust their judgment on what the company actually needs. Companies have wide latitude to determine their own bylaws. It would be fairly simple to implement a system of company-wide voting to resolve disputes. It would create a model that maintains family ownership, but synthesizes it with more of a worker cooperative style of conflict resolution. Implementing such a model is possible, but it requires the full cooperation of both the CEO and the board. It strikes me as the faster, cleaner path to finding just and sensible outcomes. Hey, and as a bonus, it doesn't rely on taxpayer funding. It also incentivizes both the CEO and the board to connect with their employees, articulate a vision, and prioritize their happiness. This is my idea. It's not the only option. It may not be the best. If you think you have a better one, I'd love to hear about it, because this problem is causing widespread damage to our economy, and we need to find solutions to stop it. So there you go. If you want to know why you can't have a good boss, that's my take. Great bosses are great because they don't exploit others, but exploiting others is insanely profitable, and our system of corporate governance makes it possible for small, coordinated teams of selfish, greedy people to work together to oust the guy you actually like and seat themselves on his throne. Hopefully the courts will stop them, but if they don't, the only recourse is for employees and customers to walk away.
I have always believed that we are born into this world at a certain time and at a certain place to be with certain people for a reason and a purpose. Everyone has a destiny, and because of you, I stand here with a renewed vigor and a sense of purpose. And may we always remember this past summer, first, as a time where our collective values of loyalty, courage, and kindness for one another really prevailed. And in that process, we just happened to save our company.
Readers, I set out to help you understand an important cultural shift within corporate America and how it's driving great leaders out of their seats of power. I hope I've done that. There will certainly be more developments on this story in the future. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to let them pass me by. Despite appearances, I'm actually not trying to turn Bitches Get Riches into a college-level seminar called More for Your Dollar, Form and Meaning in the Semiotics of Market Basket. I just could not let such a rich opportunity to opine and educate pass me by. Did you learn something new? Are you thinking about your own past leaders in a new light? Do you have other ideas for taming disruptive shareholders or exposing their board proxies? If so, I want to hear about them in the comments. Let me know. I want to say a special thank you to my research assistant, as well as the folks who provided some legal feedback and advice on how to make sure that we are staying on the right side of defamation laws, which we are. Allegedly.